Hi guys, today I'm going to go through how to use the piece paragraph method for use in language analysis questions. I'm going to go through the steps, and then at the end I'll show you how this relates to the AQA mark scheme for GCSE English language and include a worksheet for you to have a go yourselves. If you're not for the AQA GCSE English, then this might still be a good technique for you to learn just to improve your language analysis skills. So first of all, what does piece stand for? So you take your ordinary point evidence explanation paragraph and you just tack on a few extra elements that will help develop your answer. So your point is going to be the short statement that has got a little bit of the question in it, really nice and simple. You're just going to say what the writer's done, what technique they've used. Then you're going to mention the evidence, so that's selecting the right quote for the question. So that needs to be an appropriate quote and preferably a short quote. Next, we've got the author's method, so what techniques have the writers used? And that's quite a large paragraph. You can go in for the main techniques that the writer's using, but then any other subsequent techniques, even word choices and things like that, is included in this section. Next, we have context. So how does the situation in which it has been used play a role in the effect that the language has? So for example, it's a very different effect if somebody tells you to do something quickly in a very dangerous situation compared to if they are now shouting at you in a more domestic situation, saying, do it now, do it quickly. So different contexts really affect the influence that the language has on us. And then finally, you explain. So it's kind of like linking back to the question and just fully explaining how all the things that you've drawn out really kind of supports your answer. And this is fantastic for those people who are looking for a B, because on the AQA mark scheme, we're looking for a very kind of clear explanation in your analysis to get that B. So these are really good for an A and B, just to kind of give you something to kind of start developing your ideas. Now, generally people don't like the formulaic approach. That means following a formula like this. But what this does is it allows you to start thinking about the wider influences of the language. And it's a really good starting point. So if you do want to go for an A star, possibly abandon this at some point, but then use this as a starting point. Just when you start practicing your analysis and things like that, it's a really good thing to use to start you off with decent analysis. So here's my question. This is a standard question that you'll find in most language analysis exams. How does the writer use language to describe the weather? And our quote is, "The wind came lashing down, waging war against the ground." So we try and find a nice small quote that's appropriate to the actual question. So here's my full answer, but what I'm going to do is go through the various steps that I did to construct this answer. First of all, I'm going to read this to you, and then we'll have a look at how I decided what would go in here. So the writer used a metaphor to make the storm seem aggressive, as it stated that the wind came lashing down, waging war against the ground. And now I'm going to talk about the writer's method. The writer creates this effect by first comparing the rain falling to someone declaring war. This suggests that the rain is coming down heavily, falling so hard it is almost akin to someone striking another person. So I'm just giving that vague effect there, as if to cause them harm. This is further reinforced, so this is when I go a little bit deeper, zooming in we call this, is further reinforced with the use of the verb lashing, which has connotations of something being struck quickly and with enough brutality to cause either scarring or to cause bleeding. This creates an incredibly violent tone to the writer's use of language. And now I want to move into context, but we'll have a look at that further on. Within the context, it makes the rain seem as if it's so heavy it might actually damage the earth, making the reader think more of natural disasters such as flooding in order to understand the severity of the rainfall. The effect of this is that the reader feels that a violent assault is occurring rather than just regular rainfall. This is not the kind of weather a person should be caught out on. The connotations of death and pain that echo throughout this quote suggests that the weather would be dangerous for a person to walk out into. So I'm just trying to talk about the effect, and I'm trying to talk about all the different features that would play into the effect that this quote is having, and they're all deliberate by the writer. So first of all is we have our point, okay? And as I said, the writer uses a metaphor to make the weather seem violent. Okay, and then we have our evidence. The wind came lashing down, waging war against the ground. Next, we have the author's method. So the writer creates his effects by first comparing the rain falling to someone declaring war. So that's me talking about the effect of that metaphor, and then what this suggests. And using a phrase like "this suggests" will always kind of put you back on track in your answer. Always making sure that you're trying to explain as well as you can. This suggests that the rain is coming down heavily, falling so hard it is almost akin to someone striking another person as if to cause them harm. So I'm trying to explain this in as clear language as I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into the individual words that have been used within that quote. So this is further reinforced with the use of the verb lashing. So I've chosen a verb there that is particularly effective within this quote. So this is reinforced with the use of the verb lashing, which has got connotations, that's ideas associated with something being struck quickly and with enough brutality to cause either scarring or to cause bleeding. This creates an incredibly violent tone to the writer's use of language. So next I want to talk about how the effect of that language plays within the context. So within this context, which is another word just for situation or environment, it makes the rain seem as though it's so heavy it might actually damage the earth, making the reader think more of natural disasters such as flooding in order to understand the severity of the rainfall. So what I tried to do here is I tried to think about, by kind of talking about the rainfall being almost like a war, how does that fit into our kind of like everyday life? And it would be kind of like it's something you wouldn't want to go out into because it's dangerous and it's painful. Now, context doesn't always apply to your quotes. You can't always put them in there, and this was quite a difficult one for me. But it's important to think about this. If you're struggling to things to come up with, think about how it works in the context. It depends how good the quotes are. Um, as you develop in your English, you will be able to pick out an instinct to kind of find the most powerful quotes. You think, yes, I can really say a lot about that. And the more you say, the more you can say about the context and the author's method and all those deliberate choices that the writer's made, then the higher your marks will be because you'll be moving closer to that analysis skill, which is really what the examiner is hoping to see here. Okay, finally we have our explanation. Okay, so this is when I'm trying to tie it all together. So the effects of this is that the reader feels that a violent assault is occurring, rather than just a regular rainfall. This is not the kind of weather a person should be caught out on. The connotations of death and pain that echo throughout these quotes suggest that the weather would be dangerous for a person to walk into. Now, you might find that my answer is a little bit repetitive, but what it is, it's kind of covering all bases, and it's just making sure that my answer is as clear as possible. If you ever write a peel paragraph, point, evidence, explanation, and link, um, you'll find that the linking aspect is always kind of bringing you back to try and focus on actually answering the question. Once you've talked about the techniques and stuff, you're just linking back and making sure that you've answered that question. Okay, so how this is graded. So it's important to know this, even if you're not doing the AQA GCSE English language exam, to have a look at how a lot of these exams kind of value these marks. So I'll take this from the AQA GCSE English Language website. I pulled this directly off their mark scheme. If you are doing this course, it's really advised that you would have a look at this mark scheme. It might really help you understand, what skills are really being valued here. The main skill is that one there in purple. So it analyzes the effects of the writer's choice of language. So analysis is the highest level of that skill set, and we achieve analysis by really kind of breaking down a small quote and saying a lot about it. And the more you can say about a small quote in one particular paragraph, then the better your marks will be. That's why I always tell students, don't write several paragraphs, write one and really try and take apart the quote as much as you can. The other criteria is selects a range of judicious textual detail. Now, even though I said just one paragraph, we can refer back to, and a high level answer, you can actually refer back to certain things that complement your quote. Okay. Also, judicious, it just means that you're picking the best possible quotes, those ones that have the most deliberate effect that the writer is trying to make. And then the sophisticated and accurate use of subject terminology. So That might be things like, just getting the word classes right. Maybe talking about semantic field. That would be like how all the words kind of play together or create a certain kind of tone. Obviously, you need to get your language techniques terms right, but if you can explain it in very intelligent terms, in terms of English language, then your mark will be so much higher. Okay guys, finally, please like and subscribe if you like this video. I'll try and include a worksheet for you guys to have a go at. I'll include any of the resources that I put on here for you to use. Yeah, if you follow the link as well, you can find the PowerPoint that I've been working on. So rather than worry about writing all this stuff down, you should be able to find it there, and there'll be an exercise for you guys to complete as well as my sample answers from today's session. Okay, so I hope you like the video, guys. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.